Hey, JulesBlessedVegan, and as always, welcome to my channel. And for those of you who are new, I know you can benefit. So if you're like, wait a second, didn't I just see a video? Yes, you did, but I was super spastic and freaking out over my allergies, and now I have grace, so I'm back. I was just like, you know what? I attended Mass since that first video and chilled out. And you're like, that's a neat trick, Juliana, since the churches are closed. You know what? The buildings are closed, but the church is open for anyone who dares to pray or show up, and that's me. So this is one of the holiest days of the year. I do have that part too on how to refrain from binging during this time. But because it is Palm Sunday, one of the most sacred days of the year, I would rather talk about that. And that was the Mass that I just attended. So, you know, Mass is still available, of course, online, on TV. I watched EWTN, which is the Eternal Word Television Network, which is specifically the Catholic channel, and they offer Mass several times a day. And this was such a beautiful, profound Mass, and one of the most difficult, because we're called to participate. We're always called to participate in Mass, but I mean, in this one, you literally participate in the dialect of it, in crucifying Jesus and asking that Jesus be crucified. And there's nothing easy about that, I am telling you. So Palm Sunday is literally the week before Easter, where Jesus is entering into Jerusalem on a donkey. People recognize, wait, isn't that Jesus guy? That amazing guy who's like healed everyone and done so many great things. Quick, lay down palms. Let's make a red carpet for him, if you will, right? Because he was a rock star, honestly. So they laid out the palms, and it became a red carpet as he entered into Jerusalem for his passion, which of course is his death and resurrection. So that's what it was about. And I just think it's so incredible. You know, Jesus is God incarnate. He is God in human form. And in no way did God need to come. He didn't need to come down here. He didn't need to choose to walk through this life. But to model for us, he did. You know, Jesus wanted to show the better way, the grace that can exist in all the confusion, in all the fear, and all the pain. He was like, you know what, I'm not going to make you guys go through anything I'm not going to go through myself. From birth, from the awkwardness of being a baby, to being a little tiny toddler, to the horrificness of a family outrunning the law, you know, to being born to a teenage mother, let alone one with a backstory that supposedly said she was impregnated by a Holy Spirit. Right. Who's buying that one? And then having a dad who, by all accounts, is the stepdad and definitely his dad. But your dad does exist, but it's God. I mean, like, really, the story just goes on and on, right? And then all of the things he had to go through from when he finally entered his public life, knowing his truth. I am a righteous person. This is not news to anyone. And when I have something that I want to proclaim that I know is true for me, and if somebody's not buying it, or if I'm not allowed to say my truth, it freaks me out. And here's God proclaiming things, and people are doubting it, and people are questioning, and people are arguing back. What grace is right. To have to separate himself into those three persons, in Jesus the Son, in the Holy Spirit, in God the Father. And I have to constantly surrender to that other self to make it through this part. You know, and then finally, after all that miracle, after all the pushing to get his lessons taught, knowing that the clock was ticking. I mean, for me, there's nothing scarier than when you know something's going to happen. Like for me, I mean, it makes it so much worse. Like, we didn't know that this coronavirus was happening right now. We didn't know we'd be quarantined. There really wasn't any way to prepare for it. So we're kind of just taking it as it comes. But had we known, you know, sometimes when you know something's coming, it's even more scary. It's even more upsetting. Sure, it's amazing when you can prepare for it. And because of Jesus and his message and his lessons and all the New Testament and everything that he demonstrated for us, we can certainly be preparing for our next life. You know, we can be preparing for all that needs to be in place for the end of this life by saying yes to him, and all of that's valid. But honestly, when I would know that I was in trouble and that I was going to be whipped, and if I had to wait at all, even now, when a principal says, well, I need to talk to you and we'll talk after school, the anxiety until after school, to find out. And here was Jesus totally understanding what it would be like to be whipped like that, to be stripped of his clothes, to have people literally spit in his face. How disgusting, right? Having people condemn him, smack him, hit him, shoving a crown of thorns into his head, nailing his palms, oh my gosh, and his feet together. Are you kidding me? I mean, darn it. All of those things, hanging on that cross, knowing what those other prisoners were experiencing. They'd hang them on the cross and their body would sink down to the point where they couldn't even fill their lungs anymore with air, and inevitably they would suffocate. And if they didn't suffocate quick enough, because inevitably they'd be trying to push themselves up so that they could breathe, they'd break the knees because they needed the cross, right? They'd break the knees. And Jesus died within 3 hours, which was completely unheard of, which is why that centurion was asked to stab him in his side to see if he really was dead. I mean, if he stabs him in his side and he's not dead, we're going to hear about it because this prisoner is going to be screaming. But instead, not only blood came spurting out, but water, which was a complete mixture of human and spirit and Jesus, the water of life, all at once. It's an understatement to say that that centurion was converted in that very breath, I assure you. Anyway, just so powerful, and I was so grateful. I was trying to remember when there was ever a time that I did not attend, at least in my adult life. Certainly as a small child, and then for a few years in between there until I was 16. There was probably a couple of years, but from 16 till now, probably never that I did not attend Palm Sunday. But this is an interesting time, and there was pure grace, and everyone was present in my living room. So I was like, I'm going to get back on there because I rushed. I was flipping out. My eyes were super red. How are they now? Not bad. They were burning red. My nose was going crazy. I actually had to take a Benadryl, which I don't prefer, but I didn't know what else to do. And I was able to calm down and receive a spiritual communion in that moment. So I want to give a shout out to Jesus and just say, thank you so much, Lord, for demonstrating the better way, for daring to say yes to all of this when you never needed to, by continuing to offer us salvation and forgiving us and calling us to what? I mean, it's kind of funny. I think of my vegan walk, and it's like all the things that need to be done to really live in that space, right? All of the animal products to avoid, all of the excess that isn't even needed. Everything you need and nothing you don't, as Tanny Raw always says. And, doing all the things, getting in the water, getting in the exercise, making sure you have live food for a live body, like all those things. And it's like, well, that's too much and I don't want to do it, and it's too much work, and how come you're asking me to do all of that anyway? I mean, there's junk food vegans, and there's other vegans who... Okay, so let's back up a second. I'm asking you to do all these things for the grace of a nourished body that's free of disease and will completely be strong enough to serve you in your life so that you can avoid things like coronavirus, so that you can live free of pain, so that you don't need surgeries and unnecessary procedures, but you're living in complete health within your body in real time. Gee, sorry for punishing you. And it's the same thing. Jesus was like, I gave you commandments. I gave you a better way to live, to ease your burden, whereas the end game is eternity with gold streets and a house prepared and all the love you can ever want forever. Sorry for punishing you with that, right? I so get it. It's tricky to be a human, but I like the whole process. And I love loving the Lord. And I love that God called me in this lifetime to know Him. I totally dig the grace of the Virgin Mary, the access to the angels and saints, and that my prayers are answered, and that I believe that I can pray on behalf of everyone and know that God has a great plan, even if it's a little lost dog. That is very cool. All right, my friends, I will get back to you on the other talk, but I wanted to just share with you and talk with you and rejoice with you in the horrificness of Palm Sunday that results in salvation. Yes, please. Okay, like if you like, join us if you haven't, subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know if you have prayer intentions, because I am on it. The church building is closed, but the church of our soul is very much open, and God is completely available. And until we talk again, my friends, best of all, know that I prayed for you at Mass, and trust that you're blessed.